guys, and welcome back to Hilltop Farm. I'm Jay, and today I'm going to show you the results of the 2020 pumpkin harvest. Now, pumpkins have been very successful this year, and we couldn't be happier. As part of this video too, I'm doing a sort of a final, if you like, update with the Cheeky Prince pumpkins. Some of you won't know what that is, others of you will. Cheeky Prince is a hybrid pumpkin that Richard and Paul from the Richard and Paul channel in the UK developed by accident, but they sent seeds to various people all over the UK and in fact all over the world with varying degrees of success from various places. We were very, very fortunate. We were sent 6 seeds. They all germinated, all came up. But then all of a sudden, while they were still in pots, they sort of all turned yellow quite almost overnight. I think it was my fault. I think I didn't get them in the ground soon enough. But we got them in the ground, and we lost 4 very quickly within days. But 2 thrived. And those 2 were extremely successful. Now, we've had that one there is the largest Cheeky Prince pumpkin we got off the vines, and I've got it written here in front of me somewhere. Yeah, 8.4 kilos that big baby weighed. But in total, as I say, from the 2 vines we had, we ended up with 31.6 kilos of Cheeky Prince pumpkin. So we were thrilled at that, absolutely thrilled. Now, I've already spoken to Paul in the UK, and I told him that once we open this big bad boy here, we'll be doing all the seed saving probably from that one because it's the largest one. As long as it, the taste is good, and I've got no reason to think that it won't be. But we're going to do the seed saving from that. We're sending seeds back to Paul. I'm also planning on sending some to Erica from Erica's Little Welsh Garden, because I know she is a pumpkin fiend, so I'm going to be sending her some of those too. Now, I'm going to leave the email address in the description down below. I'm going to be showing you all of our pumpkins in a minute, not just the Cheeky Prince, but if you want seeds from any of these pumpkins, if you shoot me through an email to the address down below, and probably in the next month or so, because we will make sure we open them all up in the next month or so. Well, not all of them, but a representative of each one. Then we can organise anyone who wants seeds. I'm happy to send them to you. Now, if you're overseas, it's up to you to look into whether or not your country will allow them to be imported, and if they get confiscated at the border and destroyed, so be it. But I'm happy to send them, and if you want any Cheeky Prince seeds, I would probably get in quick, because I think they're going to be in high demand. But anyway, these, as I say, these are the cheeky prints. That one, I mean, I haven't got them all out because they're in the extended pantry, but you can see there's that one, here. I've got them either side of me here. So yeah, they're a beautiful looking pumpkin. They really are. This sort of this bluey green, not bluey, grey green colour through to this apricot-y orange. So very attractive they are. Now, the next pumpkin we have is this one here. It's another heritage pumpkin. It's called Golden Nugget, and it's only a small pumpkin, as you can see. I bought these a long time ago. I always thought we couldn't grow pumpkin here because we really didn't have the space. And I bought these thinking, oh, I wonder if these would do better because they don't need as much room. And I never got around to planting them. This year was the first time I did, and we only got one plant. And from that one plant, what I actually did was I grew it on a trellis right next to our cucumbers. Now, one vine gave us 3 of these, right? Now, a lot of you might sort of say, oh, it's not much return from one plant. But bear in mind that one plant took up a patch of earth, sort of that square if you like, and it literally grew on a trellis that was maybe 1.5 to 2 meters high and probably half a meter wide. So when you put it in those terms, people that have got small spaces can in fact grow pumpkins, particularly if there's only 1 of you or 2 of you. These are ideal because you know you can cut that in half, scoop it out, and then you can stuff it, roast it. You and another person have half each. If you're on your own, it might do you, well, it would do a couple of meals, could do you 8 meals depending on what you did with it. But I understand people on their own don't necessarily, you know, want pumpkins that are 5 or 6 kilograms like this one, because they'd never get through it. It would spoil before they did. So this could be the answer. They're also wonderfully decorative. I don't know if you can see. They are very, very typically pumpkin. This one's the stalk broke off, so we're going to have to use that relatively soon. But you know, when it's got the stalk on it, it's very, very decorative. At Samhain or Halloween, whichever one you celebrate. So bear that in mind. As I say, if you've got a small space, I will be growing this again, just because you know you don't always want to cut into a large pumpkin, and as I say, when you're entertaining, they're great to actually, you know, you can actually carve all your pumpkin out and actually use, because of the size of them, you can use them as a serving bowl to serve your soup in or anything like that. So we will definitely be growing these again. But if you want seeds, email me down below. Okay. The next one, which was what I consider to be our not so successful pumpkins this particular year, were our butternuts. I know in the US and the UK, I believe you call them butternut squash. In Australia, we call them butternut pumpkin, but they are the same thing. We had them, what I they were in the wrong place, really. We had them growing on a trellis, but we had them growing up behind all of our tomato plants. So I think, and you know what tomato plants are like, they take over, and I sort of realised that. And I think they sort of got smothered and stifled. But we did get, I think about 3 or 4 or something, and they weren't. There was only one that was a decent size. We only got 5.47 kilos of butternut pumpkin or squash. So that was a bit of a disappointment, but next year we will try. I'm actually going to try growing them in the exact same spot because it's a perfect spot for them. It's the tomatoes that will be relocated. We'll be having low things in front of them next year, and well, you know, things like lettuce and things like that. That way, you know, you can they'll have some room to grow. The pollinators will be able to see the flowers instead of having to go rummaging. So fingers crossed that they'll do better. But as always, our favourite pumpkin, and I say favourite not counting the Cheeky Prince, because as I say, I haven't eaten one yet. They could soon become our favourite, but up until now, our favourite are what we call here in Australia a Kent pumpkin. I don't know what they call them in other countries. Up until quite recently, they had another name, which was a not so pleasant name. That was, I don't know where it came from, but it had a double meaning. It had a racial connotation to it. So I'm glad they dropped that here in Australia. They don't use that term anymore, but we now call it a Kent pumpkin. You may call it the same thing, or you may recognise it as something else. And if it is called something else in your country, leave it in the comments down below. But this is always our favourite. It doesn't taste waxy like some pumpkins can do. A lot of pumpkins, I know here in Australia we have something called the Queensland Blue, which is very popular. But I always think it's almost got like a soapy taste to it, which I find unpleasant. So I'm not having those again. But that aside, these are, even if you get one that's not a particularly good one, it doesn't taste soapy. It's still edible. But on the whole, they're really good. They're usually a very, very dark orange flesh, and they store well. They can really well. So, you know, if you cut into 6 kilogram pumpkin and we know that we're not going to use it, then we can can it. For example, in the summer months, the main thing we use it for is pumpkin soup, and when we have a roast, we like to have just a few pieces of roasted pumpkin. In the summer months, don't have as many roasts, and we don't eat pumpkin soup, so we don't eat much pumpkin in the warmer months. So if we were to, you know, hack this open, say for a roast, we'd leave a small piece in the fridge for, you know, a roast we might be having in 2 or 3 weeks' time, but the rest of it we know won't last longer than that. So we will in fact dice it up and can it. And we now actually can it with chopped up onion. We dice it, we then put chopped up onion in it, we put chicken stock in it, and we can it like that. And it's a half-made pumpkin soup, because then you just have to heat it up, put the stick blender through it to puree, salt and pepper to taste, and there's your pumpkin soup. So yeah, that's really good. We got the last of it in this morning, which is why I don't know if you can see some of them might look a bit wet. It's because we've got lovely autumn rains going outside. Yeah, and the last of them was picked. All the pumpkins went in late this year, which is why it's almost winter, and a lot of these Kent pumpkins, as you can see, this one's okay. This one is going to have to ripen on the shelf of the extended pantry. It's not quite there yet, but with it getting wet outside, of course you end up then getting your slugs and snails about. We didn't want to run the risk of losing them, so they're all going to come in and ripen on the shelf inside. But normally we would have harvested them in the last 4 weeks. Okay, but we have got 40.49 kilos of Kent pumpkin, which is the most we've ever got of that, which brings our entire pumpkin total to 79.81 kilos, which is a huge amount, probably more than we will use in the year. So as winter starts to come to an end, we will have a good look and can anything that we're not going to eat by the end of winter. But it's probably, well it is, it's the first time that we will be independent in pumpkins, and that's what we, like so many other people, are striving for, to become as self-sufficient as possible. It's crazy to think you can just jump in feet first and be self-sufficient. You can't. It's all trial and error. But we're starting with a few things at a time. We are self-sufficient in garlic, which may not seem like a big deal, but it is to us. We're self-sufficient in garlic. We're self-sufficient in spring onions, radishes. We can now add pumpkins to the list, and we're hoping to add tomatoes to that list in the next 12 months, and beans in the next 12 months. With tomatoes, we are self-sufficient through the summer, and in regards to preserved tomatoes, definitely. We've probably got 2 or 3 years worth. So that's not a problem. Our problem is when the plants finish, and tomato plants tend to finish quite abruptly here. Usually by the beginning of March they've had it. The heat is so extreme that they just burn and fry. So they're no good. And it's usually too late to get any more established before the cold weather hits. This year we've now got our greenhouse. Now there's a raised bed in the greenhouse, which, I mean, it's predominantly for seed raising, but we have put a raised bed in the back of it. We're almost at the point where we can use that, and we've got lettuce and tomato plants growing in the greenhouse in pots. You know, sort of tomato plants are sort of about yay big, and we do intend to plant those into the raised bed, and it's as an experiment to see if we can actually grow tomatoes all year round. My research shows me that Moneymaker is a good tomato for growing in greenhouses, which is what I've got growing out there. If there's another variety you think works better, leave it in the comments below. Not that often. Do let me know, because we can try other things. But we're hoping with the greenhouse to be able to have fresh tomatoes all year round. Because like a lot of you, we use tomatoes in all sorts of things, even if it's just a basic sandwich. Yeah, so to get independent with tomatoes, we need to have those fresh ones through the colder months. So we're trying that, and hopefully we'll achieve that. And as I say, beans is also on our list for this year. So we're making sure we're going to have lots more beans. We're also self-sufficient with corn. We've got, oh look, I don't know exactly, but somewhere in the vicinity of, I reckon, about 60 corn cobs, somewhere around there, I reckon. And the corn cobs we either cut in half, or if they're really, really big ones, we'll cut them into 3. And all we do, cut them, put them in the freezer in sealed bags, and then they're ready to just throw into some boiling water, and we have, like a half to third of a corn cob's about that big, as one of the vegetables with our evening meal. I mean, obviously not every night, but once or twice a week. And we're independent now in corn doing that. So we are slowly working our way through things to make ourselves independent. We're virtually fully independent with fruit as well. I mean, we could be independent with fruit. The only problem with fruit is occasionally we see something in the shops that's a good price and we think, oh, just fancy that. But we don't have to have it, because we do have other alternatives, either fresh or preserved here, if we want to. So yeah, so we're doing pretty well with that. Anyway, that's enough of me waffling on. Now I will continue on, because I've just remembered we used to think we couldn't grow pumpkins because of the space, and that's partly true. But in our kitchen garden at the front of the house, it's 3/4 of like a food forest. It's where a large percentage of our fruit trees are. And in those beds, we basically, apart from the fruit trees themselves, we have flowers and things to attract pollinators. And I thought, oh, we can grow pumpkin in there, but of course the problem was the pumpkin that you put in there, it was never moist enough. The trees just took all the nutrients away, and you either got no pumpkins or you got 2 or 3 that were the size of an apple. That was hopeless. But what we did is we actually put in a couple of raised beds. They're only small, they're quite deep though. They're sort of thigh high, but they're in the food forest, they're amongst the fruit trees. And what we did was we put all the pumpkins in those, and then allowed the pumpkins obviously just to cascade down the side, and then the vines could go wherever they wanted in the food forest under the trees, and occasionally they'd come out onto the pathway and you'd guide them back into the garden bed. But it meant that we were able to keep the water up to them, we were able to keep lots of food up to them, and give them everything they needed, and they utilised the space that wasn't being used for anything anyway, because the trees were there. So, and we did it as an experiment, thinking, well, I wonder if that would work. And it did. And this is what we got. And in fact, both Chicky Prince plants were in the same raised bed. Now that bed no word of a lie, would be about that square. And probably that deep. Oh, you can't see my hands. Probably, just over a foot deep, foot and a quarter deep, and maybe a foot square. It's almost like a plant pot, except there's no base. It's sitting where the roots, I don't know how far the roots go down, but they could go down into the main soil below it. But and the 2 plants are in the same one. And we just made sure that they had plenty of, they got blood and bone, and they got animal fertilizer. And it was done once a month. And we didn't allow them to dry out. They got, plenty of water. And this is what we got out of them. So, if space is an issue, and it still could be an issue, but maybe you can utilise part of your property that is no good for anything else because it's under trees or something like that. But you can put them in these raised beds and just keep the food and water up. And that's all we did. Anyway, that's enough on that. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments below, or you can use the email address down below to email me and ask. If you want any seeds from any of the pumpkins except the butternut, I don't think we're going to have enough to give out of those, but certainly the Kent pumpkin, there will be some of the golden nugget and the cheeky prince. If you want any of those seeds, email me down below. Make sure you put your name and your address clearly on there and the variety of pumpkin you want. You can have more than one, but make sure you write the variety of pumpkin on there. And I will do my level best to get some to you. Okay, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll be notified when we put out any other content. And if you hear that noise, we've got freshly hatched ducklings in the next room that, by the sound of it, want to be fed. Okay, so I better go and do that. So until next time, it's goodbye from Hilltop Farm. See ya!